Hello guys, so this video is the first video of a series of video we have start making talking about RHCSE, which is a certification offered by Red Hat, and that stands for Red Hat Certified System Administrator. So I'll go through different steps on how to study to be ready for that certification. So I'll go through all the configuration which you need, all the setup which is required to be ready for that certification. So I will guide you through all the steps, all configuration which you must make and practice to get ready for that certification. So this first video, it will be about showing how to create the working environment to practice for that exam. And this environment will be constituted of 3 VMs. Each VM will have a specific purpose as we evolve with this setup. And on each certification, on each VM, we will create configuration from scratch. I'll guide you through all the steps so we'll be very, very ready for that certification. So I'll start by showing my working environment. Actually, I'm using VirtualBox to virtualize. So this is the software which I'll use to create VMs, which allows me to create the setup or the environment which I will build to practice. So I will start firstly by creating the first VM. We'll go new, and the first server I will name it server A. And the most important thing when you are creating a VM is the ISO file, which is the file which contains the OS which you want to install. And in my case, I'll use Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 9.2, which I've already downloaded. So this is the ISO file. I'll select that, and before I can go to the next step. I'll ensure I check this box to avoid some other configuration that will be required during the process. So as I check this box, I'll have to specify many things manually, and I'll go on the next page, and here I will set the amount of RAM memory which I want and the number of CPU which I want. I'll leave it as it is, so it will be 2 GB for the RAM and one CPU for one CPU. And I'll go on the next page, and here I will specify the main storage of my VM. So actually the main storage I will have for all 3 VMs, I will leave it as 20 GB, and I'll show you how we can use that 20 GB. So the first one will leave 20 GB, and I'll click next. After that, you can review all the setup which we have already selected. You can see the path where the VM will be stored, the ISO file which will be used, the OS which will be installed. So actually, when you select the ISO file, the VirtualBox is enough intelligent to detect which OS is on that ISO file. And you will see the RAM size and the number of CPU. And if you scroll down, you will see also the storage space. And I'll click on next. And after I finish that, I must now boot my computer. So now I'll click on start. So we just wait for a few minutes before it's opened. So you may encounter this issue. So once you start up your VMs, you will see the window size is reduced, is not maximized. So what you have to do is to go in the view settings and go down virtual screen one, and you will select 250% and click that. That will increase automatically the size of your windows, and you will be able to see very well your VM. And here, when you launch the VM, it's provide you three options. The first one is to install Red Hat, which is what we will choose in my case. The second one is to test different media, so it can test the hard drive. And the last one is for troubleshooting. If you have some issue with your VM, you can just mount your ISO file and you'll be able to troubleshoot those issues using your ISO file. So I'll go and select install. So during the installation, there are different steps through which we can go through. So we have to select which type of OS we have to install, to specify the password of the root user and other configurations. So once the OS is loaded, I will show you all the steps, and I will show what step I usually use when it's come to install any OS on any VMs on my setup. We'll wait for it to be ready. So once the setup is booted or the OS is booted, you will have this interface which asks you to choose which languages you will use. My advice will be to leave it as English as it is, because with English it be a little bit easy and you won't face any keyboard issue. So I'll choose English USA and click continue. And here we have those settings I was talking about. There is keyboards here connected to Red Hat. If you have an account at Red Hat and you want to register this OS, here install source is the media where your image of the OS is stored. Install destination is if you have many disk drive, you can be able to select from those lists and select the one which you want to use to store your OS. We leave at the default, and the one important thing is the software selection. Here is where you select which type of OS you want to install. So the ISO came with different OS. As you can see, there is server with GUI, which provide you a graphical interface. The server, which provide you some service already built in your server. Minimal install is one which I like to install, because with minimal install you will go from scratch and will start making every change which you want to provide to your OS. So in my case I would choose minimal install, and this order is other type of installation which you want to provide. And on the right side you can see all tools which came with the type of OS which you want to install. I will select minimal install, click on done, and after that I will select the time zone. So in my case I'm in DRC and I will choose Lubumbashi. So Lubumbashi and click done. And on the network part here I have possibility to select to choose a host name, to configure the network interface and give all those settings. In my case, I won't set anything right now, and we will go through that once we have SSH access to our VM, and we'll configure all those things manually. I'll click on done. Even the host name, you can set it from here. You can specify the host name which you want to give to your server. Actually, we will leave it like it is, and I will go and click done. And the last thing which I will have to configure is the root password. So this is the password which will provide once the server boots up. And I will set it to root. Yeah, I'll check that so you can see what its value is root. I'll also tap here root. And underneath that there is two checkbox. There is lock root account, hello root SSH. So if we check lock root account, we will be provided with another box which will ask us to create a new user. And allow root SSH is to allow the root user to be able to connect remotely to our server. As of best practice, it's not allowed, it's not recommend to use root SSH. It depends completely on environment. So actually we leave it as it is, and I'll click on done. And now after that we can click on begin installation, and after I click that, we'll see the installation process will start. So we'll wait for it to complete. It may take 10 or 20 minutes depending on your setup or your host computer. So if you have a big amount of RAM, it can take 10 minutes. If you have small amount of RAM, it can take much time than when you have a big one. So we'll wait for it to complete before we can go to the other step. So the installation of the OS is almost completed. So I'll start it and I will create all the two remaining OS which I took on the beginning of the video. So I'll click on reboot. So what I will do in this case, I won't launch the installation again. What I'll do, I'll just use a feature of VirtualBox and create clone of this VM, and based on this one, I'll create two more VMs to create the setup which I talked about at the beginning of this video. So leave it running. Okay, now as you can see, we have the prompt show asking for the login, so I'll enter root, and the password as I configured during the configuration of the installation, it was root also. And now as you can see, I have access to my shell, and here I can perform any Linux command which I want. So from here I will stop this server, because when you want to clone any VM, it must be shut down. So I'll stop it, and I'll go here and right click and go on clone. The second one, it will be server B, and here there are some options which I have to ensure I check. So if I leave it like it is, we can have two VM with the same MAC address. I think you might already know that each VM on the entire planet has only a single MAC address. So here I will ensure and click there and go and generate new MAC address. This will ensure that the clone of this VM have its own MAC address. And I'll go and click on next and click select full clone, finish. So it takes just a few minutes. And now it's complete. We have our second VM, and I'll do the same for the last one. And the last one, I will name it repo, because it will be the repository for our entire setup. Run repo, and I'll go and select the same option, generate new MAC address, and click on next, full clone, finish. As you can see, we have all three VMs, I can start all of them and all of them will work perfectly. So I'll go there, start the second one, and I'll start also the last one. Click start. I will minimize this window so you can see all windows. You can see here we have server A, here we have server B, and the last one, server repository, is just up here on the middle. As you can see, we have the 3 VM which I talked about at the beginning. Wait just for it to complete and I will log in on all of them. So here we can tap root. As you can see, we are logged in on the server A. I will go also on the server B. I'll enter root and root. I'm connected. And I'll go on the last one, which is repo root. So as you can see, I have now access to all of them. So now I can start performing any configuration which I want. So in this video, I just want to show you how you can configure you can install VM, create VM for the setup which you want to practice on. This was the material covered in this first video. In the next video, I'll show you how to configure the network part and host them. So we have, as you can see, actually we have 3 VM, all of them have a single name which is host name. So I will go to the step and show you how to set host name and how to configure network address, as we didn't do that during the installation part. So in the next video, I'll show how to perform that two settings. Configure the host name, and after that we'll configure the network addresses for all of them. So if you are more interested in this type of content, you can click a like button or you can subscribe to get notified whenever I post new video. So in the meanwhile, take care and see you soon.